something about that.
You know how there have been a bunch of Sherlock Holmes movies over the years? Like, loads? There are almost as many stars as there are stars in the sky. And since Sherlock's in the public domain, dude, anybody can take a stab at their own Holmes flick. We've had some real gems, like the classic The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes and that cool one with Ian McKellen, Mr. Holmes. And recently, we saw Netflix's Enola Holmes and Enola Holmes hitting our screens, with that coming out soon. But then there's Guy Ritchie's take with Robert Downey Jr. as our favorite detective. Those movies were huge hits, like mega blockbuster status. But here's the thing. Despite all the love for the first two, a third movie seems to be as hard to pin down as one of Holmes' tricky cases. We're all just sitting here, waiting for it to materialize like a ghost in the fog. You know, back in the early 2000s, Robert Downey Jr. wasn't the megastar we know him as today. Sure, he had some solid roles in flicks like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Zodiac, which got him some well-deserved props, but in terms of box office draw, not exactly topping the charts. Then, bam! 2008 rolls around, and suddenly everything changes. Downey swoops in as Tony Stark in Iron Man, showing he can carry a massive franchise on those broad, heroic shoulders. And let's not forget his scene-stealing turn in Tropic Thunder, which earned him an Oscar nod. In the blink of an eye, Downey went from a risky bet to the reigning king of Hollywood. In 2009, Robert Downey Jr. busted out his rendition of the iconic Sherlock Holmes in Guy Ritchie's flick. And boy, did it shake things up. Instead of your usual detective yarn, it was this wild action-adventure ride that had everyone hooked. Props to Ritchie's style and snappy dialogue for keeping us on the edge of our seats. But let's not forget the magic between Downey and Jude Law, who played Watson. Their chemistry was off the charts. They really brought Holmes and Watson to life in a fresh, dynamic way. And you know what happens when you've got a winning team? People start clamoring for more. Cue Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. This time, Holmes and Watson are up against the notorious Professor Moriarty, played by Jared Harris, the ultimate Holmes baddie. And just like the first one, it was a hit. Critics loved it, and the box office numbers didn't lie. But then, what happened to Sherlock Holmes 3? One of the standout moments in A Game of Shadows is the ending that leaves us all on the edge of our seats. This little scene basically screamed, hey, more adventures to come. It was like a promise of more sleuthing escapades for our dynamic duo. And Warner Brothers seemed totally on board with the idea, even bringing in Drew Pearce, the genius behind Iron Man 3, to whip up some script magic for Sherlock Holmes 3. But Downey's dance card was pretty full with his role as Tony Stark in the MCU. So as much as we all wanted more Holmes action, it had to take a backseat to Iron Man's adventures for the time being. In 2013, Jude Law gave us a glimmer of hope by mentioning that there was this idea floating around for a third flick, but nothing concrete like a full-blown screenplay yet. Then, in 2014, Robert Downey Jr.'s wife, Susan, who was also producing the project, spilled the beans. She said, yep, there's an idea, there's a rough outline, but we're still in the brainstorming phase. Basically, they were looking for that spark that would make a third movie really shine, especially after the epic showdown with Moriarty in the second one. But then, cue the delays. Warner Brothers got our hopes up by setting a Christmas 2020 release date for Sherlock Holmes 3. 10 years after the last one? Sounds wild, right? Well, it turns out it was too good to be true. The date came and went, and there was still no Holmes on the horizon. Just when we thought Sherlock Holmes 3 was finally gaining some momentum, along came COVID to throw a spanner in the works. The announcement of yet another delay hit us like a punch in the gut, but there was a silver lining, a surprise director swap. Guy Ritchie handed over the reins to Dexter Fletcher, fresh off the success of Rocketman, and with Downey wrapping up his Tony Stark duties in the MCU, his schedule was wide open for some sleuthing action. But just as we were getting excited, COVID came knocking, causing yet another setback. Talk about bad timing. It's been over a decade since Downey last donned the deerstalker, but fear not, Holmes fans. His collaborator, Amanda Burrell, assures us that a third movie is still a top priority for him. What really spices up the Sherlock Holmes 3 project is the idea of expanding beyond just Downey and Law's characters. In 2022, Warner Brothers dropped a bombshell. They were cooking up not one, but 2 TV series set in the Holmes universe, exclusively for HBO Max. Talk about a game changer! Back then, there was talk of building a whole Marvel-style universe around it. Exciting stuff, right? But since then, there's been radio silence on the status of these shows. Did they vanish into thin air like one of Holmes' suspects? Only time will tell, but the potential for a wider Holmes universe has got fans buzzing with anticipation. Now that Downey's done with Tony Stark, it's exciting to see him tackle new projects beyond the MCU. Let's not forget, he's a powerhouse actor in his own right. Oppenheimer showcased his talent with a fresh, original performance. Maybe the acclaim from that movie will motivate him to revisit one of his most iconic roles on the big screen. But who will be in Sherlock Holmes 3? While the official cast is still under wraps, it's widely expected that Robert Downey Jr. will be back as Sherlock Holmes. And Jude Law? Yep, he's also set to return as Watson. The last time we saw him, he was gearing up for a honeymoon after Holmes' supposed demise. Law's teased that the new film will push the story forward, focusing on the duo's codependent relationship. There's talk of a significant time jump, with rumors suggesting a move to San Francisco during the Old West era. It sounds like the game's afoot in a whole new setting. Apart from Downey and Law's comeback, the only other confirmed cast member for Sherlock Holmes 3 is Paul Anderson, famous for his role in Netflix's Peaky Blinders. Anderson will reprise his character, Colonel Sebastian Moran, from A Game of Shadows. Moran's a key figure, a right-hand man to Sherlock's arch-nemesis Moriarty. As for how Moran fits into the story, your guess is as good as mine. Details on the plot are pretty hush-hush for now, but with Moran in the mix, you can bet there's some intrigue ahead. Now, let's talk about the Sherlock Holmes 3 story. In the closing moments of Sherlock Holmes' A Game of Shadows, the stage was set for the next chapter in the saga. After thwarting Moriarty's sinister plans and seemingly sacrificing himself to protect his friends, Holmes and Moriarty took a plunge off a balcony into the Reichenbach Falls. They were presumed dead, leading to a heartfelt funeral for Holmes, orchestrated by Watson. But just as Watson was preparing to move on, he received a curious package containing a clue that suggested Holmes might still be alive. Following this trail of breadcrumbs, Watson discovered that Holmes had pulled off a classic disappearing act, hiding in plain sight in Watson's own office. With a mischievous flourish, Holmes added a question mark to Watson's memoir, hinting that the story was far from over. And just like that, the stage was set for Sherlock Holmes 3. Well, that's it. What do you think the future holds for Holmes and Watson? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates on your favorite movies. Until next time, keep sleuthing. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you at the next one.